G'day so-and-sos, welcome to our sewing room. My name is Cathy. Perched up on her new bed here is Lucy Purr, and this is today's project. So Halloween is just around the corner, so I thought it'd be fun to do something ready for the spooky season. And this is very beginner orientated. It comes together super easy and there's not too many parts to it or steps to it. So I've used this gorgeous satin for the outside and a faux suede for the inside. If you're a beginner sewer, I would recommend that you just stick to cotton woven. It will make life a little bit easier, and you'll find heaps of Halloween themed fabric in a cotton woven anyway. Now for the interfacing, I've used a light iron-on fusible fleece, and it's really simple to attach. You literally just iron it on. And then in the brim, I've got some garden wire, just that sort of wire that you use to stake up your veggies and whatever. And then I've got this gorgeous ribbon around the outside. Now I forgot to list the ribbon when I went through the supplies, but you'll need ribbon as well if you want to have a bow like that, obviously. Okay, well, yeah, couple of steps, super easy, and I'm ready to get started. So let's get cracking, Luce. Yeah. No, she's gonna nap. We'll get started without her. So let's have a look at what we need for today. So cutting mat, scissors, rotary cutter. I've got my good scissors for my fabric and my not so good scissors for my interfacing. I've got my clips, a marking tool. I've got some measuring tape. I've got something to poke out my corners, pins, and did I say ruler? You'll need a ruler. And I've got some wire for the brim of my hat. Now, this is just like garden wire stuff that I got from the hardware store. Just use sort of whatever you've got handy. Okay, oh, and I've got some paper as well. Now, if you don't have any large sheets of paper that you can use, you can draw your pattern pieces out on the back of one of your pieces of interfacing or fabric. That will work fine. Let's have a look at the pattern pieces. So let's get started drawing up our pattern. Now we're going to do the top of our hat first, and for that I've got my pen, big ruler, and my butcher's paper. So I'm going to work along the bottom of my ruler and then start to come up this side. That way I know that my angle here is going to be a nice right angle and it's going to be nice and square. So I'm going to draw a line that is 17 inches long along the bottom of my ruler, and then just draw in that side bit as well. Then turn my ruler around, line up that 17-inch mark along the bottom, and give myself a 17-inch line up to the top there. Then what I'm going to do is place this 17-inch mark right down in that corner and just a little bit further away from this top line, and just start moving my ruler around and giving myself a little dash up the top there to help me make my curve like that. And I'll just do this all the way down. So I do have a, this is a really good way of doing a circle as well, like out of a big piece of fabric if you're making something and you need a circular piece. So I do have a short, I think it is, on my channel, or maybe it's a short video up on how to do this. Lucy Purr is climbing the door. But if you go to my channel, a lot of people say that they can't find a particular video if I mention a video in a video. When you go to the channel, you have to click the little video tab at the top of the page, because on the initial page, it will show maybe the last 8 to 10 videos that I've done, but not all of them. So if you click that tab at the top, then she's got the zoomies, then all the videos will come up, and same with the shorts. If you click the tab for the shorts, then you'll see all the shorts. So if you're looking for a particular video or for one of the bags that's in the background, that's how you do it. But yeah, so long story short, there's a shorter video on there how to use this method to do a circle somewhere. Okay, so that's pretty good. So what I'll do then is just join the dashes to give me that curve like that. and this will be the top piece of our hat. Okay, now let's make the bottom bit. Now let's make the bottom of our pattern piece. So we want it to be 10 inches around. So you can use your ruler like I just said, but I think I'm going to do it this way because it's a little bit quicker. Going to grab my tape, whack a pin in that bit, sort of just to hold it. It's not going to hold it very well. Now, if you've got two people, this is much easier. One to hold this bit and one to do this bit. But I'm going to do it by myself. So I'm going to chase my tape with my pen. I'm not going to put my pen in front of my tape. I'm going to put it behind at that 10-inch mark and just slowly and carefully work my way around, giving myself a 10-inch circle. Adrian is inside somewhere. He's got a few weeks off. But by the time I go and find him and convince him to come and help me, I could have done it on my own. So if you go slow, it's not too bad. And this is going to be the brim of our hat. Now for the interior part, the head part, we're going to go 4 inches. And I made a test one and that seemed to fit me okay. I mean, I guess my head is average sized head maybe for like a middle-aged woman. Okay, so 4-inch line. But yeah, if you wanted to make it smaller, then yeah, I wouldn't make it too much smaller. I would probably just widen this seam allowance a little bit rather than making the actual hole smaller. So we're going to go with a 1/2-inch seam allowance. So if you find that, you think that's too big or it turns out too big, then you can make it a little bit smaller. But for like reference sake, the size hat that I usually wear is like 55 inches, I think it is, which is the average one for women. Okay, then we will cut that piece out. So there's our two pattern pieces, and mine are a bit squished up because Lucy Purr decided to help me do that. So out of our pattern pieces, we'll then cut our fabric. Now I've used fabric which probably wasn't the easiest choice, but how fabulous is it? So cotton woven would probably be the easiest thing to use, but I've used this satiny one for the outside because it's just going to look amazing. And then for the inside, I've got this black faux suede stuff. So, but you use whatever you are game to use. And we're going to interface all of our pieces with a lightweight fusible fleece. So that will help. So I've cut one out of my hat piece out of each fabric. And like I said, interfaced them with fusible fleece. And then same thing with the bottom part of our hat. One piece out of each fabric and light fusible fleece. So we're going to start on the top pieces. And what we are going to do is fold these guys in half so the straight edges line up, and whack some clips down along there. And then we are going to take that over to the sewing machine, and we're just going to stitch down that side at 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I will clip up that one as well and see you over at the sewing machine. So I'm using my Singer C430, and we're just going to sew down this side at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Just remember to backstitch. Too easy, besides the cat. So there's the top part of our hat done. Now go ahead and just trim down your seam allowance at that top bits so that when we turn these out, we have nice sharp corners for the top of our hat. And then what I'm going to do is give myself a little snip over on this side. So there's my seam, there's the other side. Give myself a snip there to mark that center, like that. Cool. Then I've gone ahead and I've marked my centers on this bit as well. So I've folded it in half and then given myself a little snip here and here on both pieces. Now we can turn our cone bits out. So because I've used this sort of fabric, I've just gone ahead and used a seam roller and just rolled that seam open on both pieces. If you have used cotton woven, then you'll just be able to give that a hit with the iron and just open up that seam and give it a good iron, just so when we turn it out, it sits nice and flat. And again, if you've used cotton woven, once you've turned it out, you can then iron it from the other side as well, just to make that seam sit nice and flat. And we really want to poke out these corners. Now, I really wanted to use one of my vintage machines today for this project, but it's not up and running yet. I bought it on the weekend, went down the coast for a few days, and yeah, on Marketplace I saw a vintage buttonhole maker, and just for fun I thought I'd go and buy it. And so we went out to his property. It was a rural in the country, a rural property, like a farm. So we went out there and I bought it, and the lady met me in the driveway and handed it to me and all good. And I was backing out and she sort of stopped and waved at me, and I went back and she said, "Do you like vintage machines?" And I said, "Well, yes." And so she took me into her shed and she had so many machines, because she used to be a horse blanket maker, her and a partner. And yeah, so I bought a 99K, a Singer 99K from her. So I'll show you in a future video, but it's very cool. I wish I could have fit more in the car, but I couldn't. Okay, so I'm going to grab the bottom piece, and so I'm working on the black pieces. And I'm going to turn the brim wrong side up. And I've got the cone piece right side out. I'm going to stick my hand in the cone piece, and I know where my seam is, and I'm going to put it through the brim and pull the brim up along it. So I match up that seam with one of the snips on the brim, like that. Match up that seam with that snip, whack a clip on there, like that. And then on the other side, match up my center snips. So that's a conical one, and there's the brim, and match those up. So now I know I've got pretty much the same amount of fabric on each side. And now I can just start whacking some clips all along those edges, just trying to keep it as even as I can. Yeah, so this lady had a heap of vintage machines, like old Singers and some German machines that I hadn't seen before, and a heap of industrial machines and overlockers. I wish I could have fit in the car. And she'd lost her husband a few years ago, and she was just sort of clearing everything out and getting the shed empty. So yeah, I wish I could have bought more. But the Singer 99K, that was produced for decades, and they are a great little straight stitch machine. They're really, really good. They're really quite powerful for such a little machine. They're 3/4, so 3/4 size. But I'm waiting on a reconditioned cord that I bought online as well. So if you do buy old machines, it's really a good idea to find a cord that's been rewired online, or just to get an electrician or a sewing machine mechanic in your area to rewire the cord so that you know that it's safe. But I think I also need to pull it apart and clean out the old grease and re-grease it and stuff too. So you know that smell, that old vintage sewing machines? Every old sewing machine has it, I reckon. It's the old grease and gunk inside, but yeah, the old grease has a really distinct smell. So I bought another one on the weekend as well. I bought another green 319K. So you might have seen my 319K in other videos. It's a really cool old machine. It's got like typewriter keys on the top, and it runs with it, makes the stitches. You have different cams, like they're different discs. And you put the discs on the front, lift up different keys on the top, and that's what gives you all your different stitches. And that one makes about 80 odd different stitches, I think, which is very cool, which is, I think, just as much as my new computerized one. So yeah, I bought one of them. I just couldn't, I've already got two, but it was a bargain. And one that I've got is a tabletop one. One that I've got, I'm turning into a treadle powered one. And this one is just in a really cute little cabinet. Couldn't help myself. Okay, so that is one part of our hat done. Now we're going to take that over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew that on at around the same seam length, around 1/2 inch. Let's go do that. Okay, I'm going to be sewing from the brim side, from the outside of the brim. So hopefully I don't get too much of that in the camera's face. Wiggle that under around 1/2 inch, and I'm going to make sure that I'm using my stiletto for this bit. So back stitch there. So as I come around, if I want to sort of move any of these puckers, I'm just going to lift the foot and then smooth out that fabric, pop my foot back down and continue sewing. Don't be tempted to get your fingers anywhere near that needle. So I've got another pucker there, lift up the foot, shift my fabric a little bit like that. See how it sort of smooths it out a bit? And then keep sewing. And I'm just going to work my way all the way around, just doing that. Okay, last little bit. Make sure I backstitch there. And I will do exactly the same to the other piece off camera, and then I'll see you back at the table. Okay, so I've got one wrong side out and one right side out. I'm going to take the one that is right side out, and it doesn't matter which one you do. This is just my lining, that's my exterior, but it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to find where that seam is, and I'm going to pop the seam down the other way so that the seam on this one is on this side and the seam on the other one is the other side. And I'm going to poke the one that is right side out into the one that is wrong side out. So if we have a look, we can see the wrong side on both pieces now. Now I'm going to start clipping up this brim all the way around. But I'm going to find my pen and give myself a turnout hole so that I don't forget, because I am shocking. So along this brim, I'm just going to mark a hole. So round about 5 or 6 inches, I guess. So about a hand's width along there. And we're not going to sew that bit. That is where we are going to turn our hat out of. So make sure you give yourself a couple of good marks there. And then I will just start clipping this all the way around, or pins, whatever you've got. But yeah, because of the fabric that I'm using, I definitely don't want to be using pins, but whatever floats your boat, whatever makes life easier for you. And then once we've got all this done, we'll take that back over to the sewing machine and then we'll sew that bit down as well. Around the same, around 1/2 inch or so. And just work my way all the way around. So, yeah, so I'm going to be away again. So I've gone away for the weekend, but you guys wouldn't have noticed anything because I still uploaded. But we're going to be going away again in a few weeks. So I've got a bag filmed for next week and it is fabulous. Oh, is it there? Sneak peek. That blue one. It's a bowler bag and it's fabulous. So that's a sneak peek for what we'll be doing next week. It was so much fun to do. But that one is filmed, edited and loaded up and ready to go. So it'll be up next Friday after this one. And then after that, I'm taking a few weeks off. We're going to go traveling a little bit while Adrian's got some time off. So probably 2 to 3 weeks. Not really sure yet. We'll see how we go. I'll probably miss my sewing machine and want to come home and film something and then take off again. But we're thinking about going out west. So I live inland from the coast. Like lots of people in Australia live along the coast. Most of Australia's population is along the coast. But I was actually born in the middle of Australia in a tiny little village called Woomera. And at Woomera, there was a weapons facility testing base, and it was a mixed base. It was a joint base between Australia and the US. And my father did security there because he was with the AFP, the Australian Federal Police. And the deal was that if he did a couple of years there, then when he moved back to Canberra, he would automatically qualify for public housing. So that's what my parents did. They lived there for a couple of years. And we weren't born there because I don't think there was a hospital. We were born down in Adelaide Hospital. But that's where we, were conceived, I guess. And yeah, where we were sort of raised for the first year. So I really want to go out there and have a look. But it's in the middle of the desert and it's bloody hot. And it's just, lots of sand and emus and stuff like that. So we'll see if we make it that far. It's a fair way from here, but yeah, so I'll be away for a couple of weeks. Okay, let's go back and sew all that down, just remembering to leave our turnout hole. Okay, so I'm going to find one of my marks and that's where I'm going to start at. So one of the sides of my turnout hole. And remember to backstitch. And then just carefully work your way around, just trying to keep your seam allowance nice and consistent. Coming back around to that other turnout hole, remember to backstitch. Cool bananas. Now we're going to clip into these curves. So I'm going to take my scissors and just very carefully clip into my seam allowance, almost up to those stitches. Just be careful not to hit your stitches. And I'm probably about 1/4 of an inch apart. Now make sure you do use your good scissors for this because your hands will get tired. And I'm just going to clip all the way around. So I'm just going to keep talking because I'm bored. So yeah, so we're planning on going over to South Australia. So I'm in New South Wales, which is on the east coast. And South Australia is along the bottom. So, and then up into the middle of Australia. So it's where Uluru is, the big rock. So that would be really cool to go and see as well. But I just don't know if my back is up to doing something like that. Like you don't climb it anymore. That's very, very frowned upon. You used to be able to climb it, but you probably shouldn't because it's a sacred place to the First Nations people. So I think that you still can, but if you do, you're a bit of a douche. I mean, sorry, but that's just, you know, how I feel. If it's sacred to someone else, then, you know, it should be respected. But you can still go and have a look and go on tours with the Indigenous people around the rock and see all that sort of thing and learn the history and learn why it's sacred. So that would be cool to do, but it is a bit of a hike and it is a bit hot. And I just don't know if my back is up to that yet. So maybe next year we'll do that bit, but yeah, but my back's getting so much better. And swimming lessons for term 1 ended, which was very cool, and we passed. So yeah, going into term 2, which is intermediate, and that will be heaps of fun to do. And I can swim like a dolphin. Well, I can't, but you know, I'm getting there. So I've been swimming in the outdoor pool, in the 50-meter pool, which is very cool, and I can do about 10 laps before I get tired, but that's with flippers on. So it is a bit easier to do with flippers on. But yeah, if anyone out there is recovering from a back injury or anything like that, like, really recommend swimming. It is so much fun, and it's just, I can really feel that it's helping a lot. And it's really helping to strengthen everything up. Okay, get to my turnout hole. I'm not going to clip my turnout hole because we want plenty of the seam there to be able to close that up when we get to that in a minute. There. Okay, cool. Now I can turn that out. So reach into my turnout hole, grab one of my points and start turning this out. Oh, how fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Like that. And then I can poke the lining bit into the main bit. Like that. Oh, this is going to be so cute. Really want to poke that corner out well. Where's another purple thing? Another purple thing, which is pink. So if you haven't seen that thing that I've been using to turn my corners out and stuff like that, my points, and over at the sewing machine, it's called a little purple thing, Thang. And if you're a regular viewer, you will know that I bang on about these things all the time because they are just awesome to use. And you really, really should be using one at the sewing machine. Always use a plastic stiletto at the sewing machine so you are not getting your fingers anywhere near that needle. I saw last week on one of the sewing pages that I'm on Facebook, and I know a lot of you guys are on that page as well, that a lady had accidentally, of course accidentally, Cathy, she didn't do it on purpose, put the needle through her finger, and she put up x-rays where it went properly through the middle of her finger. I won't say because, you know, injury detail and all that type of thing, but you know what I mean. So you do not want that to happen to you. And if she's watching, then I really hope you're feeling better because that looked painful. Okay, push that seam out, and if you've used cotton woven, you can give that a hit with an iron so you get that laying nice and flat and pretty. But I'm going to go off camera and just roll that in my fingers, maybe use a towel over the top and give that a bit of a hit with the iron, and use my little seam roller, and I'll be back in a minute. So now I've taken my wire and I've poked my wire in through one way and out the other. And then when I've got back around to the top, I've just whacked some tape on that end and twisted the ends around each other. So pop that back in, and then I will fold my bottom seam over that wire and then fold the top one over the top and whack some clips along there. And then I'm going to do the dreaded hand sewing. I'm no good at hand sewing, but we are going to hand sew that bit closed because we don't want to machine stitch this bit because that wire is there. And our machine wouldn't like it anyway because the presser foot won't be able to sit flat, but we don't want to sew anywhere near metal like that we can't really see where it is. Okay, so I am going to just sew that seam closed and then we can attach the ribbon. But you don't need to watch me do that. I suck at it and it will look terrible. So just, yeah, stitch that closed. So I've closed the turnout hole and I whacked my bow on there as well. Now the ribbon that I used I got from Spotlight and it's actually got wire in the top and bottom so it sits nicely. And it's actually a Christmas ribbon and they had this stuff on sale. I bought it yesterday and you guys will see it in just 2 or 3 days time. They had this on sale for 10 rolls for $15 and it's usually about $7 a roll, so pretty good if you're in Australia or anywhere else that has a Spotlight. Okay guys, that's it for me today. Remember to be liked and subscribed so you see this bag next week. We'll be making that bowler bag next week, which was heaps of fun. And until then, remember it's only fabric. We can always buy more and we should because we deserve it. Okay peeps, catch ya. Bugger.